and that way I know that we are streaming, and we are streaming. So beautiful, awesome, fantastic. Okay. Thank you everyone for either coming back to Third Eye Salon or for your first time joining us here at Third Eye Salon. So happy you are here with us today. Our show today is Psychic Stumblings and Astral Fumblings, and we'll get into that in a moment. But first, I wanted to welcome everybody. And so let's welcome Lynda Colter-Bergh, psychic and conscious business coach. Hey, Lynda, as always, thank you for being here and being my bestie.
Oh, thanks, Kat. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with everybody. And I will be on chat today. So I will be back and forth, which means that maybe I can get in during the conversation some of the chats as we go.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, we'll play with that stream as it happens. And then we have got the lovely Jillian, normally our engagement gal, but she has so many stories. We wanted to get her in on the conversation. Hey, Jillian.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, it's always a blessing to share space with you. And then the most extraordinary Barbara Jean Lindsey, Barbara Jean. Welcome, Barbara Jean. We're so happy you're here.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you so much. I just love you guys, and I'm thankful to be here. And I was listening to the Beach Boys right before.
I have been singing Barbara Jean all morning long. So that is just so funny. Yeah, Barbara Jean's been with us a couple of times. We love her so dang much. We keep finding ways to bring her back onto the show. So, and if you haven't seen our first show with her with Sekhmet, I really encourage you guys to go see it because it's just a mind-blowing show. A lot happens in that show, including Lynda just spontaneously channels Sekhmet at a certain point. So I put it down below actually in the description link. So, all right, steering into the conversation here. So we take a fresh look between the veils of reality. That's what the show is all about, and being able to examine things from different angles, different points of view, peel back the layers and re-examine, cross-examine. And we're looking at what it means to come into your psychic gifts, your telepathic abilities, your empathic gifts. And sometimes we trip along the way when we're learning, just like when you learn to ride a bicycle, you wipe out a few times, right? So it's that same thing of being able to say, part of learning a skill is falling down, but sometimes falling down brings the best lessons and the juiciest bits of wisdom. So we're going to be exploring that today. And down in our description box below, you can see that we have links for Barbara Jean. We've got links for Third Eye Salon. And you can certainly buy us a coffee, Third Eye Salon, and that helps us financially, which is always appreciated. You can join our Facebook group. And we always ask that you like, share, subscribe, click on the notification bell. So if you have subscribed, once you hit the notification bell, when we go live spontaneously, you'll get a ding and you won't miss out during the live chats, because sometimes the funnest things happen in the live chats. So, all right, I'm going to get into Barbara Jean's bio here, just because if you are new to her and her work, I think she's just amazing, and you need to get a glimpse before we go into the conversation. So Barbara Jean Lindsey is a professional psychic and spiritual healer, giving thousands of readings and spiritual healings during her world travels over a 25-year professional career. She is a published author and an international inspirational speaker. Being a world traveler, she leads her annual tours to the world's most sacred spots for healing and transformation. She is an international seminar trainer, a certified fire walking instructor, certified medical hypnotherapist, Qigong medical practitioner, level 2 Reiki initiate, 25-year ordained spiritual minister, certified hospice caregiver, and a Sister of Avalon, to say the least. And I'm going to go back and ask you what a Sister of Avalon is. I know you told us the first time we talked with you, but I want to go back and remember that. So in 1989, Barbara Jean had an extraordinary near-death experience. After full body channeling an ancient Egyptian being, her lungs collapsed and she was killed in front of a live audience. I can't imagine. Over the next few days, she fought for her life on the physical plane, spiritual plane, and beyond. Barbara Jean's story, journey, and transformation are chronicled in her autobiography, Dying for the Light. Dying for the Light. I want you to just take a moment, check it out. I purchased this book such a fun read, and it took me to places in the afterlife that I've never been to with other books and interviews that I've experienced. So I read it like in 2 nights. It's so worth the journey. So I just want to buy your copy today. All right. Barbara Jean was the founder and director of Casa del Sol Spiritual Retreat Center in Santa Cruz for over 8 years. For over 15 years, she has sponsored and continues to facilitate the annual Heart of the Cosmic Women Conference, a gathering of women that empowers and inspires and heals women through celebrating the goddess. Speaking of goddess, so again, that show we had with Barbara Jean was with Sekhmet. There's a book that she has that I would really recommend. It's Other People's Encounters of Sekhmet, because they're so real and they all are parallel to one another, because Sekhmet's just an amazing force. So I encourage you guys, if you're interested, after especially watching the video, if you're into it, I highly recommend the book. All right, so now going into the conversation finally, kind of to give you a preview, some of the things we're going to look at are like psychic stumblings. Have you ever accidentally bumped into a ghost? I know Lynda has, at least a couple of times. Have you realized that all of a sudden, I'm actually reading someone's mind, these aren't my thoughts? Or did you have an unexpected telepathic experience where something was being communicated and you realized it was part of a larger conversation? Or animal telepathy? Was that something you've experienced and weren't expecting to experience? Astral fumblings, did you realize you were out of your body? Or were you looking down at your bed and being like, who is that man with my, or who's that woman laying next to my husband? Why is she wearing my pajamas? Oh my God, it's me. Did you bump into a spirit unexpectedly, whether it was someone who crossed over or a ghost who hadn't crossed over? Did you have trouble getting back into your body, or any awkward lucid dream experiences? I have had awkward lucid dream experiences time and again. So that's kind of like what we're looking into. And now we'll go ahead and flip over and we'll get into our guests and their experiences. Barbara Jean, anything that I said, has that sparked anything for you where you're like, oh my God, that was me?
Yeah, my sister and I were in Scotland, since we talked about Scotland. Somehow that story came up, and we were staying in a hotel right above the witchery, right? And the witchery is built on all the skulls of all the people that had died in the plague, their pandemic.
Whoa.
And so my sister thought it would be fun if we stayed in it's called the Bishops Rectory. Okay, and I'm thinking, yeah, that might sound fun for you, but it doesn't sound so much fun for me. We went in, and the whole hotel is done in Gothic, everything. So our whole room was red and black,
Oh, wow.
and she slept in where I'm sure they changed the mattresses, but where the bishop would sleep, right? And so I stayed in this little alcove there, and I'm thinking, I'm cool, I got this, but I don't really like playing in that. I just don't. I respect what's going on, and I just didn't want to really be there, but my sister, I was being a good sister. So in the middle of the night, I'm laying down, and all of a sudden I wake up, and there's a ghost-like being laying right over the top of me.
Holy.
And it's starting to try and take my breath, right? And so I go, oh, and I go, you like that? And I just take my hand and I go, thou shalt not be here, like power, And it was funny because it was just gone like that. It was just gone. And I had set the room. I always set the room wherever I travel. I always set the space, set my room, set my body, set everything. But I think it had been there for so long, hundreds and hundreds of years, that it was okay. It had permission to be there. And on my sister, I had my sister's permission to be there too, because she wanted to see it.
She wanted the experience.
It came to her later, and she screamed, and so we just moved it out. I actually took the door and opened it 3 times and reclaimed the space, and put energy on the door so it couldn't come in through the roof. But it's real. I mean, there's evil out there, okay? Not that we have to, take it on, but to know that it's there by being aware, then you can dispel it.
Well, do you feel like it was evil, or do you feel like it was just like, hey, you're in my home, I need energy, you're a battery, I'm just going to take some energy, thanks? Or did you feel like it was evil?
I think it was evil. I think it really got off on it.
Oh.
I had my permission to be there. You know, I have a sovereign body, I have a sovereign soul, and it did not, it violated my space.
Okay.
So I felt like, yeah, it was evil. It was trying to get into trouble or sit into my body. So I wake up in the morning and I'm a good channel. So I probably left my crown too open when I went to bed. I had, you know, a couple glasses of wine. And so my crown was more open than normal. So I think it came through that way.
Okay. And you feel like it wasn't like a ghost who was checking you out. It was like, I have an agenda and you're my victim. It felt more like that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
or it's kind of like my sister said, well, we paid extra for that.
Oh, that's hysterical. Well, you got what you paid for, I guess.
Yes. So I could go to a restaurant there, but I'm not ever staying there again.
Why would you do that? Yeah. What were you going to say, Lynda?
That reminds me of an incident I had in the Garden District in New Orleans, where I went and was always found a way to stay at really cool places when I worked for corporate America. And
Awesome.
had somebody there that was from Germany who had a little mustache and his name was Adolf. True story. It's like not a good look. And we were in this old mansion that was, you know, the 20-foot high ceilings in New Orleans. And when we checked in, it was a bed and breakfast. The owner said, "How well do you sleep at night?" That's an interesting question. Why do you ask? And she's, well, I was just wondering if, you know, bumps and knocks at night actually, you know, cause you any kind of concern. Are the walls extra thin? Are you guys going to be really naughty in the next room? I don't understand the questioning, you know? And it's like, no, I sleep like a log. And so in the middle of the night, I hear the door close. And I was like, the door was closed. Why did I just hear the door close? So I wake up and I hear somebody walking across, and I hear him walking up some steps at the end of the room. And it's like, I don't remember there being any steps. And I was so exhausted that it was like, this doesn't like equate, but I'm too tired to deal with it. Right. And I hear a door open and then close up above. And it's like, well, maybe there's just like on the other side of the wall, there's stairs that I'm hearing. And that's why she's asking it.
Right.
Get up the next morning. She's like, well, how did you sleep? I said, well, you know, you must really have thin walls, because I could hear somebody walking on the staircase on the other side of the wall. And you just kind of did this. Okay. You know, and I looked up, it was just an odd thing. And I'm not that observant sometimes before I've had my coffee. And I went back in my room, and up on the next level was a doorway in the middle of the wall, a story up, because it was almost 2 stories. Whoa. Going to like some attic space, but there were no stairs to it. So
not anymore.
Not anymore, there weren't.
Right.
So I said, so when you were asking me about like the bumps in the night, did that have anything to do with the ghost in the room? And she's like, did you see him? And I said, no, but I heard him. And she's, well, he's really, you know, if he didn't do anything to disturb you, he's okay. Some people he just doesn't like. So, you know, I just like, and then the next night I hear Adolf, I hear this thunk. And I go running out in the room because in the hall, because I mean, it was a loud fall and there were really high beds. And he came out just completely shaken. He said, something just pushed me off the bed.
Whoa.
Like, oh, apparently he doesn't like this.
He doesn't like this. He doesn't want to see
like
this.
And, you know, Adolf. But, you know, that I heard him like every night. I heard the same thing, walking up the stairs. One night I thought that I felt him sitting at the end of the bed. And I said, no, you are not allowed. My side, my space, your space, you know, and that was it. And so, and then I said, you know, and I would appreciate, because I have a big presentation tomorrow. You don't make any noise tonight. Okay. And I didn't, but it was just really funny because she was like, you're the only person that's like really not had problems staying in that room.
Probably knew not to mess. He read your aura and was like, okay, not that one. She'll
Not
smack
that
me.
one. She just jacked you up.
She will jack me up. What about you, Miss Jillian? Do you have experiences in terms of bumping into ghosts that you were not expecting?
Yeah, well, I was talking to you about one the other day that when I first started meditating, like right away I was seeing beings clairvoyantly,
Yeah,
like
Jillian's
people
one of those
beings.
irritating people. The first time she meditates, she's like, oh, my psychic gifts are awake now. First time I meditated, no problems. Look at me, full psychic. Go ahead, not jealous. Hashtag not jealous. Go ahead.
And I was meditating on my floor on my yoga mat, and I'm just not seeing anything, nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden, I felt like I got punched in the stomach. Like there was no pain, but I had a huge impact in my stomach. It knocked the wind out of me. All of the muscles in my stomach contracted. And at the same time as that impact, I saw an image of this man, and I can still see it. He had a bun on the top of his head, like a man bun, and he had sunglasses right here, and he's looking down as if he's looking at my abdomen. And I'm like, well, what the hell was that? And then I thought, I had always said, well, I think he punched me. And I was like, well, that's kind of rude. And I stopped meditating, and I don't think I meditated for another week. And then Kat, the other day, he's like, well, what if it was that he bumped into you in the astral world? Like, what if it wasn't a punch, or because there was no pain, like I said? And that got me thinking, but
Yeah, where you both experienced being bumped into it. You both experienced like like if you've ever knocked against someone else's head, like in the middle of the night, you're crossing paths, you hit heads, and you're like, it's not intentional, but it just happens. That's was just
yeah.
my thought. It was like two astral bodies being like, what the?
Well, when you mentioned it, I had never thought of it that way, but it really made sense because I felt no negative energy from this guy. Like a lot of times, like I will pick up on negativity, but it's got like a murky kind of look to it. This was
Right.
bright. He looked like he was just flying around in the ethers. And it looked like I couldn't see his face when he was looking down, but it had like that shocked element of
Right. And what's interesting, because he had like sunglasses and a man bun, so it was modern. He was current. He was somebody from this time. It wasn't like
yeah.
somebody, like he's out meditating on a rock somewhere, and all of a sudden, he's like, what the? And he didn't meditate for a week either. Like he was like, that was so weird. I mean, anyway, but so then I want to talk also about like, we can hop back and forth because really, I mean, like Third Eye Salon, this is supposed to be a salon, right? We get to talk and chit chat. We can just go all over the place and it's totally fine. I'm just curious about like people's astral travels as well. And also like lucid dreams. So I have like lucid dream experiences where I've definitely been like figuring out what I'm doing in a lucid dream and learning about boundaries and learning about like, my first instinct is always to go up and fly. I'm like, oh, I'm lucid, I'm gonna go flying. And sometimes the guys are like, no, stay on the ground. Like, we want to talk to you. And so, but I want to kind of, let that inspire the conversation. Who would like to start first? Any one of you that would like to start with a conversation about astral, lucid, any of that traveling?
Well, I could just address that. For me, I have always had lucid dreaming, but one of the things that's fairly new for me over the last 5 years maybe is that I get this whispering in the background like all night long of this, or I'll get like almost like a chalkboard of teaching me. It's always a whiteboard. It's not a chalkboard, it's a whiteboard, and seeing things, but I can never really see what it is that I'm being shown all night long. And it's like, oh, don't worry about it. You're getting it. Don't worry about it.
You're downloading it. You're
Like
downloading it.
I'm not being a good student here. I'm not getting it. It's like when time comes, you've got it. And that's the feeling that I keep getting. But that ongoing whispering again, it's like, would you just be quiet? I just want to sleep. So, but yeah, I've had ones where I've swam with manatee and done things that were, more astral travel, but in this plane on this earth.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I've had the experience too of where it was way back in my early 20s when I was really spiritually waking up and coming online, I guess you'd say, where I had that same experience where I was being talked to all night long. And like in the morning, I'm like, okay, let's not do that again. Like, like
It's tiresome.
it's tiresome. It's like, I really want to dream. I want my body to relax. And I would really like to not be up all night. Even though you're asleep, you're not fully asleep. It's just it's a different form of consciousness.
Yeah. I feel like a bad student too. Yeah.
Well,
Like,
apparently,
I'm not retaining anything.
but they're transcribing it onto your mind or into your heart or something. Like
Something.
you're receiving it because you're seeing it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Some
cool.
level.
Yeah. And Jillian, I know that you had an experience that you were saying like you had a being. I just wanted you to share that experience with your being where you didn't realize that you were seeing him. He was seeing you, but he didn't realize that you could see him. Because I feel like Lynda and Barbara Jean are both could be like, oh wait, yeah, I know that one on their own version of that.
Yeah. So, like I said, when I see things, when I meditate, sometimes it's not human looking. Like it can look like extraterrestrials, look like different grays, different beings, and this and that. So when it started happening, I didn't know if it was just maybe my subconscious bringing up images. I really didn't know what was going on. I had no reference for it. So that was going on for a bit. And there was one time I was meditating and this ET looking being popped up in my sight, and it looked like a gray, but it was more of like a brown color. And like I could see every crevice in his skin. He had wrinkly skin. His eyes were about to pointed out. And when he popped up, I freaked him out. Like he looked like he was startled by me popping up. I don't know, he must have been able to see me. And then as I'm viewing him, he's looking at my face like this, like trying to see both sides of it.
Yeah. And so he was more startled by you. He thought it was like a one-way mirror. He didn't realize it was a two-way mirror.
Yeah, he just it looked as if I would have seen a ghost. Like if I were him and a ghost popped up in front of my face, that's a look that this guy had on his face when I saw him. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, what do we look like in that situation?
Right?
Like, what are they looking at? Or do they have their eyes closed? Are they seeing us pop up astrally just like we would see a ghost? I don't know.
Well, it just makes you think, like we have all these memes, with like aliens being drawn and they're usually somewhat comical. And it's like, and that's through our eyes. And how must they see us? Like, what do they just see us as? Like these big, flesh bags walking around with lots of hair, like what's their take on it? I remember, like, I'll just share my little experience. This was years ago, back in my 20s. And there's something called the Rainbow Gathering. And so it's a big hippie fest. And so it's been going on since the 60s, where thousands of people will show up in a national forest and they're, having a wide variety of experiences. There's people from all over. There's the fairy tribe for people who are, are gay and like people who love their same sex. There's a massage therapy camp. There's a woman's camp. Like there's a kiddie camp, people who want to have help with their kids while they're, there's things for everything. So it's its own spiritual experience, but like on the ride back, I was so exhausted because they'll be drumming all night. And so you have to either be away from the drums or just surrender and just be like, I'm going to be in the rhythm of the drum and kind of sleep, but not really sleep. Anyway, so I was so exhausted on the ride home. I was like in an altered state in between. And I could see, I was standing at a park and I could see this row of people that were in the park, but they were looking at me as I was looking at them. And it was kind of like one of my first experiences of being like, oh, the dimensions are closer than we think they are. Like literally, these are people who just look like people. They're in their own park doing their own thing. And they're like, just looking at me, observing me observing them, and I'm sure they could probably see me much more clear just because they're probably advanced beings. But I'm wondering, does anybody else have that experience of like literally we're taking a fresh look between the veils of reality, but that's a veil of reality that is so accessible. Does anyone else have an experience of that where they're like, oh, I'm seeing into another world?
Well, I'll take that.
Yeah.
A couple things. The first thing that shows up is in an astral dream, a lucid dream. And I'm seeing myself, right? When you're in a lucid dream, I'm in it, and I'm trying to look for something, and I can't quite find it, but I'm trying to organize it. So I'm staying busy. And down this long, usually it happens to me on the peripheral of my right side. That's where the portal opens and everything happens,
Okay.
And so it shows up, and down this long portal, this long hallway, comes this gigantic snake. And it's just going like this, like it's right on its belly, and it's moving, and it's coming directly to me. By the time it gets to me, I can't move. It comes up over my head, and then it comes back down, and it bites me right on my neck. And after it bites me on my neck, I wake up and I go, what was that?
Yeah.
So it was, for me, I get busy with things, and sometimes I need that big of a wake-up call to just wake up and really take a look at my surrounding and what's going on, because a lot of the times I feel more comfortable in the astral and in the other world than I do here, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I didn't know it, but later, I was on this whole wild women's ride across the United States, and we ended up at the Serpent Mound. And at the Serpent Mound, I ended up helping a wonderful lady there, Terry Rivera, asked me to help her teach. And so I wasn't expecting to teach or do any of that. And so we went down and into the water, where at the head of the river is a big head of a rock that looks exactly like a snake. And so I had to, I think, have that healing of that fifth chakra in order to be in that space, in order to help people. So I baptized people, and then I gave them a reading, each person that would come. And then Terry and I walked, and the rest of the group, back down the rest of the river and then out of the water. And I think it was preparing me for that, because when she asked me to do that, I didn't go into any fear to help her. I just, okay, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. Let's do it. And for me, that's how it came as a teacher, as a helper. If I would just listen, and it had a big way, it's like, Barbara, wait.
Well, I think it's kind of an initiation. It was like an initiation where it's like, we're going to open your throat chakra and get you focused on this, on being a conduit, for this time.
Yeah, because, I'm very outgoing, but there's a real part of me that's very shy and introverted too. When I first started doing my work, it was such a challenge. It's not like now I can do it with not thinking about it, but at the beginning, it was definitely a challenge. I had to get past myself, to be able to do the service work.
Well, yeah, because it's an ego thing where it's like, you're not good enough, like whatever all this is. And so also, so what is Sisters of Avalon? And I apologize, I know you told us the first time we talked with you, but just remind me.
A group of women. It's run by Kathy Jones. It's the priestess of Avalon, the priestess of the goddess, and it's ran out of Glastonbury, England. And I was with that group for about 3 years, a little over 3 years. I was going through a really bad divorce. And I think there are good divorces, but mine tend to be bad divorces. And I have to learn the hard way, sometimes. And so I'm going through the divorce, and it really helped me have an idea, a semblance of how our earth changes in a deeper relationship with Gaia. And so by me being able to work with the earth changes, I didn't feel alone or isolated anymore. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful, and you learn all about the goddesses, and we did wonderful ceremonies and celebrations. And
And that's so fundamental. I feel like for the regenesis of the planet and our consciousness right now is reintegration and honoring of the feminine aspect, the feminine power. Lynda, do you have things you want to hop in on? Because I know you personally, and you've got like so many stories. You could just have a book of your wild stories of your encounters. So is there anything that's striking you right now that says, tell my story?
Well, I mean, I not so much astral projection. I mean, I have remotely viewed. I have by accident. I have, there was a time where I was driving and my husband called me and was like freaked out and really upset. And I thought somebody actually died. He was that upset. And I pulled off to the side of the road because I thought I was going to be that upset as soon as he told me the news.
Oh.
And so I pulled over and he told me that he had lost one of the earrings that he had. And they were very significant to him because they symbolized his kids.
Oh.
And so he is, taking a shower and it had fallen out. And I'm sitting in my car. And then the next thing I know, I'm looking in the bathroom from the hallway and we had mirrors on the showers. And I looked at the mirror on the shower and I saw a glint on the rim of the toilet next to the carpet. And there's no way you could see it unless you looked at a certain angle. And I was like, hey, I know this sounds really crazy, but calm down and go stand here and look at this part of the mirror and tell me what you see. And it was the earring. So, and it's one of those things where it's like, well, how do you do that again? That's my biggest frustration. It's like, stuff just happens. It's like, how do I make that happen and normally,
Right. How do you call on it like in an instant?
How do you call on it? I mean, that was just so like spot on. It's like, okay, now I know I can do it. How do I do it again?
Right. Well, and it's interesting because this is what I think is like, you were like in a heightened state because you thought like Chris is going to tell you someone you both loved had just died. So you're like, your energy's so up, and then he gives you the thing and your psychic mind just like goes right to it because it was just like in service, like I'm in service. And it's funny because Chris is also one of the people who's always more skeptical about those things, and yet you embody it like every single day. So it's just funny, but yeah, and that's the difference between like astral projection versus astral travel, right? Like you can astral project and go see something, and that's a form of remote viewing versus astral travel where boop, you popped out of your body and your spirit's like you're looking down at your body. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I had that once, but I think it was because I took a no-dose. And I had, I was in college and I drove all the way to get in time for a test and I passed out on my bed after the test and saw myself laying on the bed. And it's like, I'm never taking one of those again.
So you knew it was you. You recognized that it was you, and you were just
yeah. Well, at first I kept feeling myself going up, and I kept trying to pull myself back down. And my roommate said I kept doing this.
Whoa!
She's like,
whoa!
Kept pulling back, which is I find interesting because a lot of times people who are, closer to death will reach up and pull down. My grandma did that all the time. She would reach up and pull down like she was pulling things down to her.
Wow.
And so, working with people who are older, that's something I saw a lot. So I was just like trying to pull myself back down. And then finally I just popped out and it's like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. You're really lucky you made it back, So it was just a very disorienting feeling for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What about you, Barbara Jean? Were you because I know, your near-death experience, obviously you were way out of your body and into other realms, but did you have any experiences before or after that you had popped out or traveled astrally and were like, oh, this is what I'm doing, or, oh, what is this?
Yeah, when I first started it way back in the 70s.
Back in the 70s.
Back in the 70s. I'm alone by myself and I was fasting. So you know how we get into an alternative state. I had been fasting, I've been meditating religiously, and I live by myself, so no distractions. And so I'm sitting in meditation and I'm and I got this little book. I don't know where I got it, of all these yogis doing these positions. So I have the book. I go, I think I can do that. So I sit back down and I get into that pose. I'm thinking, you know what I'm thinking. How long can I hold this? And then I popped out and went way up out of my body for this the first time. And I looked down and I could see my body down below. And I thought, oh, that's my body down below. And I'm here, and what the, and boom, landed right back down in the body the moment I had that fear. The fear stopped it all from happening. And so I stopped doing meditation. I called my friend and said, hey, this just happened. I go, can you help me with that? He goes, that's never happened to me. And I've been doing this for 3 years. And so I just stopped until I met a yogi about 20 years later. And
wow.
Yeah, it scared me. It kind of scared me. And I didn't know quite what to do with it. And that's when you need, now we have all these amazing teachers that are, and it's more common, but back then for me, I didn't know anybody who did that. So that's how it affected me, but it made it real at the same time.
Right. It's undeniable at that point. Do you astral travel now regularly on a regular basis?
I do, but I don't, it's, usually I'm going and I'm in between more. I always see myself in between. It's like going through a tunnel, but it's organic. So I don't know exactly where I am. And I just kind of hang out there, but I don't have a lot of memory of it. I really don't. I usually, if I do have something, it would be more like what we talked about earlier, a lucid dream, and I'm in it. But as I still travel, I stay pretty close to my body, I think. Probably because having a near-death experience might have something to do with that. You know?
Like,
that's what I was just going to say. It's
tick
like,
that box.
Other than when we died, that we stay pretty close to our bodies.
Yeah, I have a real strong body being communication now. I didn't have that before, but I have that now, where we go together. And so it's probably the PTSD from having the NDE, you know.
So do you feel like your body has its own intelligence, it has its own wisdom, it has its own voice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I have to steady my mind to control the body, right? Because my body has a lot of strength to it, and saying, you do want those potato chips.
Well, do you feel like your body's saying you want the potato chips, or there's something that you want, but it looks like potato chips, but your body's saying, I want this essence, and it shows up as potato chips?
I think it likes the potato chips. I really do.
It's the salt.
It's pretty, so it's up to me to tame it and to have effect. I'm just working on that now, really, that whole, where my mind, my body did rule my mind for quite a while there. And so now I'm really working, it's saying, okay, I let you have a free for all for a long time. And now we're coming in and we're going to really work together and I want to honor you. But if it had its way, she would just I eat like a guy. I eat as much as I want, how much I want, whenever I want. And you can't do that in a female body. You just can't. So.
You can. It's an option. But I feel like, I guess maybe I have my take is that my body is smarter than my mind, where I feel like my mind or my emotions, like my emotional body is maybe the one that wants the chips. It wants that sensory thing to distract itself from what it's feeling. But my body itself is like, that's the part that's more like, I don't know if I really want that. Like, I will throw up if you give me that. Well, I want it. And it's like the next morning, it's like, okay, I said I didn't want it, but what? Like my body is the one that's like a little bit smarter than my emotional body. That's how, that's just kind of how I see the difference.
Right.
But that's me.
Unique, right? We're all unique.
Right.
Work, right? And with my body's she's stronger. I wouldn't be here still. So, and so I did listen to it for a long time. So it's a little different for me with the with the integration of all that is so huge, right? And to bring all of that knowledge and all that wisdom and all that into this body to work it with without going crazy, right? So
Yeah, it's a lot to balance, that's for sure. And I think there's no training manual. I mean, I'm sure there were, but it got burnt up in the Library of Alexandria, you know. I'm sure we had training once upon a time.
yeah.
Miss Jillian, I saw you nodding your head. Did you have any stories that you were feeling resonating with when we were chatting?
Oh, I was just agreeing with Barbara Jean about the chips. But I do have, when I started to go out of my body at night, because it was really spontaneous for a bit. That's just my son.
Hi, Max.
There was one night I had started to separate from my body while I was sleeping. And when that happens, it's very, very loud in my ears. I get like this whipping sound and like a whooshing sound.
Yes, yeah.
But I was not used to those experiences yet. So that was happening. And I thought that somebody was breaking into my house. So I get up out of bed and I'm just crawling around. I'm looking, you know, outside. I'm looking to see if someone's in my shed, on my deck. And anyways, I'm doing that for a little while, looking at every window. And then I stopped and I was like, I'm not even in my body. I had come out of my body looking around for this intruder, which really was just the noise of my ears when I was going into that astral state.
Right.
And as soon as I thought that, I was back in my body, just slammed right back into it. But
wow.
I could, and even like as thinking back on it, I don't know how I didn't quite clue in right away, because I wasn't just walking on the floor. I was like prowling up off the walls, and I'm pretty sure I growled a couple times. Like it was just really, really bizarre. But then thinking back, I think it's weird. But at the time, I just thought everything was normal. I was looking around for an intruder, and yeah.
That's cool. I just that rushing sound, I had that experience too. I've also had dreams where like semi-astral dreams where I'm like growling and I can hear my body growling, but I'm growling in the dream, like trying to protect my space. But like that rushing sound, I've had that too. It's like a precursor to going astral because you're hearing the psychic work, you're hearing like the unconscious or the collective consciousness, but it's like you're finally tapping in and it's really loud. And it just sounds like a burst of sound because it's everyone's thoughts at once. You know, that's my understanding of it. And I had an experience with this during that same time where I was like practicing more. This is like probably like 10 years ago, or I was practicing my abilities a little bit more consistently. And I told you the story, Jillian, when we were chatting the other night. Me and Jillian, we had a conversation the other night. That's what inspired this whole episode today. But so you guys remember Spirit Whisperer or Ghost Whisperer?
Ghost Whisperer.
It was kind of like a lot of cleavage and some ghosts with a lot of cleavage. But it was like one of those shows where even though it was like a little cheesy on the edges, I appreciated the heart of it because it was like helping people cross over. And like, I just have such a heart for that. And I was sitting there watching the show and I was like, you know, I would love to be able to do that. I would just love to be able to help people cross over. And I was just in this space of like that desire going out. And then all of a sudden in my ear, I hear what sounds like a radio, like the static of a radio, and a man's voice talking really, like an older man's voice talking really fast, like as a burst of sound through my ear. And I was like, okay, I'm not ready. I'm not, okay, I take it back. I'm not quite ready for it. Because it was like, so it's like you have the fantasy of what it's going to be like. And then you encounter it for real. And it's like, not quite what I was expecting, because it's not in your control. It's a real life experience. So that's one of my things where I taste my gifts. I'll have a telepathic experience or whatnot. And then I'm like, I'm going to go back and be normal for a while. Maybe I'll come back to that a little bit later. Anybody have any reflections on their bits on that?
I was going to say on when Barbara Jean was talking about her out of body experience, it's like I tend to label things. So if the label doesn't match what's in my head of what happened, it's like, oh, I've never done that. And it's like, oh yeah. And I think that's something that I know, at least for me, I tend to do that a lot. Because I'm sitting there, it's like, oh, I haven't done it. It's like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I was out after seeing Song of the South and singing. I was out in the backyard singing Mr. Bluebird's on my shoulder, right? And I totally see this cartoon bluebird on my shoulder as a little kid, right? And I'm dancing and skipping along and singing it. And I see this cloud up in the sky that's looks like a UFO with a big long walkway going to it. And it's like,
Wow.
oh, that's really cool. I wonder what that is. And it's like, oh, that must be where God watches us. I wonder what it looks like from up there. And the next thing I know, I'm looking at myself, skipping along, singing Mr. Bluebird's on my shoulder. And I'm thinking, silly girl, there's no bluebird on your shoulder. like this secondary projection. It's like, well, wait a minute, that's me. And I was like, well, if that's me, who's this? Wait a minute. If that's me down there, then who's this watching me down there? And it's like, well, if I can't and then this is all the kid. It's like, well, if I can't recognize who this is up here, who's asking that question? And it felt like this mirror against a mirror of just going back through of who is this? Who are you?
Wow.
And I just remember thinking that it was like too big for me. And back I went, and it was just so, it was just so instant looking down. And I just remember thinking, like, you silly little thing, there's no bluebird on your shoulder. How funny, And there's like this almost judgment of like, well, silly little girl, and then there's this other part that's like, not silly, sweet, kind of this, it's like,
wow,
how many dimensions of us are there?
Right? Like how many, was that the collective of your oversoul, like all hanging out in one spot? You know what I mean?
Like me, myself, and I, all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was like, oh, wait a minute, if that's me and this is me, and I don't recognize this, who's the this that's not recognizing this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely a hall of mirrors, and you're trying to figure out which one is you.
Yeah.
From each vantage point.
Yeah.
So
that was probably my first out of body that I had.
First out of body. Yeah, and if you guys, Lynda has, back in our archives there, we have a show with Lynda where she was psychic as a little child, like full on psychic as a little child, had a ghost friend, memory of her previous incarnation. So I encourage people to check that story out as well, because they're such rich stories. Were you waving your hand, Jillian? Oh, okay. You were just gesturing, making some grand gestures. Yeah, sweeping your hair back. Very good. Barbara Jean, do you have experiences of like when you were a little girl before all of your stuff kicked in that were kind of like these psychic moments as a child?
Well, I was a sickly kid, and my family, I was the sensitive one. So I was the one that you look at me and I cry.
Oh.
I was a crier at a real young age. And so I felt everything, right? But I was told as a kid, children in my family, you didn't have a right to speak. Kids were to just shut up, be quiet and behave and let the adults do the talking. But there wasn't a respect as a child. A child brought nothing to the table per se. So for me as a child, I think I suppressed a lot of that. So I had asthma. And so I was dying a lot as a child. They were always in the hospital, and I stayed in the big tents, oxygen tents, for a couple of weeks at a time. I missed months of school. And so I was always kind of on my own a little bit too. And I always thought that everyone just talked to the birds and to the sky and to the earth and my mom would carry me out and put me on a blanket, and I'd be out there for a few hours and I didn't have enough energy to really walk. And so I would just be out there with the elements a lot and just kind of hang out there. And I think that's where I just learned that my family, but I just thought of a story, if you don't.
Yeah.
A little bit older, I got lost in an apple orchard. It all came in fog. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, total fog. I'm scared to death. I'm lost. I can't find my way back to my car. And so I'm walking around and I ask for help and I see a porch light and I go to the porch light and the guy goes, get out of here. So I keep walking and I'm freezing, I'm cold, I don't have my asthma medicine and I'm lost. And the fog is so dense, you can't see anything. And I just cried out. It's where I just got stretched, where I just let go and said, I know I'm going to die here in the middle of a dirt path in the middle of the orchard and that'll be the end of me. So I let go. And the next moment I'm on a spaceship. And on the spaceship that has me, I don't ever see them, but they like to comb my hair. And so they're brushing my hair and they're telling me everything's going to be okay, that I don't have to worry, that everything's going to be okay. And then the next minute I can feel my body going to touch the ground. And it's where my car is, right where my car is. And so they help take me to my car. And that, I swear that really happened. And when I got into my car too, there was the old Art Bell.
Coast to coast.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So they came when I needed them the most, they're there. And I think for me, I get busy doing, and I don't take enough time even still to just be quiet and listen, and then to have conversation with them. It took me a long time to just be able to have a conversation back and forth. It took, I think, my body enough to feel safe enough to be able to do that. It took some time to be able to do that. So.
Wow. So how old were you?
I was older. I wasn't a young kid. I was older.
You had a car.
Yeah, I was older. I was a mom. I had 3 kids. So it wasn't a young kid thing. I kind of.
What were you doing in an apple orchard at 2 o'clock in the morning?
I had a friend who was a doctor and he worked emergency ER doctor. And he was feeling well. So he had called me to ask me to come give him a healing. And so I went. It was about 10 o'clock. I left to give him a healing at his motorhome that was on all of these acreage. It was a community of all these people. It was that gathered at different spots in the apple orchard. They had their different homes and houses and that sort of thing. About by Point Reyes in California.
Okay. And so it was just like after his healing, you were like, here's an apple orchard. I'm going to go for a walk. Oh, God.
Yeah, what happened when I closed the door to his motorhome, the fog was so thick I could not see anything. And I would knock on the door to have him help me, but he was out from the healing. And so I was lost. And so I go, oh, I know my way back. And they had a big circle down on the hill where all the cars parked there and then everyone walked to their houses. But I couldn't find it for nothing. So.
Oh, that is wild. And that is a terrifying feeling, that thing of being lost somewhere. And I think it speaks to like our connection with our body and our connection with the earth. Because I had as a little kid, I was afraid to be alone, like outside and things like that. And it was only over this last year that I've reconnected to Gaia in a really profound way. And this is a little side story, but I guess this is a series of side stories. That's what this really is. So it was just like a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it was during when you were on for the Sasquatch show and you and Sue and Reverend Udarro were on. And I was having this Sasquatch, telepathic thing that was happening and an energetic thing that was happening. And because I go up into the mountains and I'll go to these trails. There's different trails all around where I live where you can go. But I like to go then off the trail, right? I'm like, there's a huge rock formation. That's where I'm going to sit. I'm going to hang out with Sister Cannabis. I'm going to meditate. We're going to have like a healing spiritual connection with Gaia. And I did that and it was great. Like, that was great. And then but as I was leaving that space to go back to the trail, I was like, oh, I lost the trail. It was like, oh my God. And so there's that panic that comes in of like, because there's this disconnection from nature. And it was literally like, this is part of the experience. Like, stop being afraid of the earth. Stop being afraid that something's going to happen to you in the woods. The woods need to be part of your home. You need to make this as part of your home. And as soon as I started tuning into that and letting go of the panic, it was like, if you literally walk straight down, you're going to run into the one part of the trail at some point. There's nothing to be afraid of, but we are so taught to be so disconnected that, and like the whole Sasquatch thing, they're so connected. That is their home. There's no fear of like, oh, I'm lost in the woods. You know what I mean? And that's such a human dilemma. And it's just, it speaks to our disconnection from Gaia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that was just something that felt like a relevant thing to tie in there. I want to tell one of my, can I tell you, I'm going to tell a little astral travel. Well, it was the astral, it's a lucid dream thing that I experienced back in my early 20s, when I'm really doing all this exploration initially, and I'm learning how to do lucid dreams. So the thing I learned how to do was, what you want to do is find the edge of something and jump off. Like, you walk to the edge of a swimming pool in your dream, or the edge of even like get on a table, but then you jump and then you relax your body. And that was how like you can start to do astral travel or a lucid dream. I don't want to confuse this dream. That's how you get into a lucid dream situation. So I learn how to do that, and I do this, and I jump off of like a cliff. I'm like, okay, I'm dreaming. I'm going to stay calm. I'm not going to wake myself up because I'm excited that I'm lucid dreaming. I jump off of a cliff and I start to fall. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to fall. And I see the earth start to rush up beneath me. And so there's that panic, right? Of like, you're going to hit the earth. I'm like, okay, just it's like, go jelly. And like, so I relax my body. I fall through the earth. I'm like, okay. And then again, another earth rushes up beneath me. And I'm like, okay, go jelly, go limp. And so I'm like, okay. And I go through that earth. And then I'm flying, and I'm not controlling any of this because I've relaxed my astral body, or whatever the fadoodle you call it. So I've relaxed my body, and I'm just like, going this way, going with whatever the energy is taking me. And I'm above this forest, I'm above these trees. And all of a sudden, like, my feet kick out from under me. So like my feet are here and they kick out from under me, and I land on my butt on like in a forest. And there are about 3 or 4, maybe 5 cats sitting out in front of me. And I am very connected to cats. I am connected to felines. My soul is part feline or something. And so there's these cats sitting out in front of me, and they have glowing eyes, right? They all have glowing eyes. And so that's a little weird. And, and one of them says to me, oh, I bet you'd like to know about yourself, wouldn't you? Like something like that. And this little like weird cat little voice, like if a cat could talk, right? And then all of a sudden they start biting my feet. They all start biting my feet. And I freak out and I wake up kicking my feet. And I'm like, I'm like, don't ever do that. Like, don't ever do that. And I'm like, why? Like my cat people that I'm hanging out with, why would they like attack me and bite my feet? And then like, as you get older, you kind of like get perspective, right? And in my 20s, and this is not universal, but generally in our 20s, we're a little bit more narcissistic. And I certainly was like self-absorbed. And even though I'm spiritual, like I'm still like vain and all the crazy things that you do to protect your ego in terms of, being shallow and whatnot in your 20s. You're just absorbed with yourself. You don't realize the world's bigger than you until life kicks you in the ass. Anyway, but it was like one of those things where they were like saying, get grounded. Like, that's great. You can go and do this, but get on your feet and get grounded, which is kind of the theme of my life. But isn't that interesting that like it took me to a place, because that was the whole thing. Like, if you do this, if you relax and let yourself just go with wherever it's taking you, you'll meet your spirit guides. So my spirit guides were a bunch of cats with glowing eyes that were biting me on the feet. So it's like, what? But the message was profound. And it's like they got the message to me in a very visceral way. That's my little story. It's one of my Hallmark stories.
Well, I love that, I think there's a part of, there's so much of me that's analytical that I want it to show up a certain way. And what you just demonstrated is it doesn't show up the way we expect it to.
Yeah.
And, there are many times I've said WTF when or just this, huh? That the dog ears of what the heck did that mean?
Yes.
And later on it makes sense, but a lot of times it's imagery. And, whether that, and then, there's that part of me that goes, well, was that just my subconscious using imagery to get to me, or was it something external? And that's a different judgment for everyone of where that is. But to have that happen, yeah, later on it goes, oh, that totally makes sense now. And that's part of it. It's like, oh, it doesn't make sense at the time, but later on it's like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. And it's like they're gonna show up in a way too that works, not the way that you expect. Like the big snake biting Barbara Jean's neck. It's like, what the hell? Why would a giant snake bite me on the neck? Like, what does that have to do with my spiritual evolution? That's really invasive. But it was part of an initiation. It wasn't about a control moment.
And on those terms, it's on their terms.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh my
I'm gonna,
God.
I'm kind of busy, so 5 o'clock on Tuesday works for me. It doesn't work that way. Their time and space is very different than ours.
Yeah, and they kind of know. They know better. Like our ego will find a way to like wiggle out of something, and they're like, no, nope. We're gonna hold your feet to the fire on that one.
Unless you're Jillian, and it's like, I'm going to meditate at 7, so show up at 7:05.
Don't know.
You're so cute, Jillian. Yeah, Jillian, I mean, I feel like you have a lot of other stories that you're holding back on.
Oh, I have lots of stories. I mean, I could tell you about when I saw the beings come through my wall.
Well, yeah. Why bury the lead? Go with that story, Jillian. Jesus loves us. Go ahead and share, for heaven's sake.
So I had just 1 second.
Take care of the little man.
So the first meditation that I ever went to, group meditation, I didn't know it was a meditation. I thought that it was just a meeting, and it was at a crystal shop in the town where I live. So I went, and there was one other woman and the channeler, the woman that was putting it on. And I thought, oh, we're just going to go talk about, ETs and this and that. Like it was a starseed kind of event, or connecting with your star family or your cosmic family. So I walk in, and the whole floor is laid out like with crystals, singing bowls. They had candles. It was just beautiful. But I panicked internally because it was all set up to do a meditation. I'd never done that before. And anyways, I went through with it. The woman, she did some light language. She did a bit of Reiki. She's a Reiki practitioner. And afterwards, as I was driving home, I was, spacing out, looking around, and the trees, I could see the energy field around the trees. It was the first time that I had ever seen any type of aura in my entire life. I believe that it was from the light language, but I had gotten home. My daughter was at my mother's house for the night, and I decided that I was going to sleep on the couch. Once in a while I do that. I just pass out on the couch. So I sat down. Actually, I was sitting right here, right where I'm sitting now. And actually, I want to back up a little bit. As I was getting ready to go to sleep, I had this moment where everything just went silent. Like, it's really hard to explain, but it was like a deafening silence. Like I couldn't hear the fridge running. I could hear absolutely nothing.
Whoa.
Like no running anything, no cars on the streets, no power line buzzing, like absolute dead silence. So I took note of it. Thought that was a little strange, and I came over and I sat down on the couch, and for some reason I looked over at the wall, and right now it has quite a bit of pictures on it, but at the time it was pretty bare, and I saw it looked like 3 extraterrestrial, like the profiles of what a gray would look like. And there were 3 of them standing there, but it was solid black. It was 2-dimensional. It was like it was flat up against the wall. And I'm just looking at it. I wasn't scared or anything. I was just kind of in awe. And so they were standing side by side like this. They had long torsos. I couldn't see from about the thighs down, but from my reference, they would have been about 7.5, 8 feet up. So I don't know if they were off the ground or floating. I don't know, because I couldn't see lower than their thighs. And I'm just staring. And all of a sudden, they started to come forward. All three of them started to come forward a bit towards me. I would say like a foot and a half off of the wall. So when they did that, they gained density. Like they came almost into a third dimensional view of how I was seeing them. But their blackness lost its solidity. So at that point, it was, I could see through them, basically.
Wow.
But they were still very much there. And as they came forward, I noticed that they were all holding each other's hands, like all in a line, just holding each other's hands. And again, I didn't, you know, internally, my heart was going and it was beating right out of my chest. But in my mind, I was like, don't freak out. Like you called this a bit. I'm like, it would be like inviting someone over. And when they came over saying, what the hell are you doing here? Like, I didn't want to be rude.
Right.
And I felt no negativity. Like it was the most loving feeling ever. So I'm just watching it, sitting there, like just looking. And it lasted, like when they came out and I saw that they were holding hands, they just stood there for about a minute and then they all dissipated. And then I went to sleep. I remember I said hello and then I went to sleep.
Wow. Do you have a sense of, do you feel like, I know your little man is having a good time over there. Okay. Yeah. Go take care of your little man. That is totally cool. Have you had any ET experiences, Barbara Jean, where ETs have popped into your home?
Well, yeah, this morning with the Sasquatch, but that's more Sasquatch, but ET, it would be not lately. They're quiet. They've been kind of quiet with me. So not lately.
But they have shown up for you though.
They have. When I meet them is when they show up. It's when I'm in an alternative state, you know. But I reminded me of another story, but it's not a ET related.
Go for it.
I'm with my kids. My son's like 13, my daughter's 11, my other one's 7, and we're at a camp that I met. I just happened to meet a Native American Indian chief, right? And he just happens to be doing a sweat and asked me if my family and I would like to join him. And so we did. And for me, it takes to be in that altered state a little bit. So we're in the sweat lodge and they're pouring the water and it's really hot. It's really uncomfortable. And I'm there with my kids. We don't know anybody. They don't know anybody. And I'm trying to be cool because that's what you do to respect your teenage children. You try and be cool. You try and, be blend. You're not a psychic. You're just, you're a cool mom. And, we're doing.
I'm normal. Look, see, I'm normal.
Yes, exactly. So hot and everything. And all of a sudden I pop out of my body just for a second, go up to the edge of the tent there where it's all covered. And then I come back down. But when I come back down, I'm a bear. And I full body channel a bear. And I could feel its teeth. I could feel its fur. I could feel its body. And I'm growling and I'm drooling. It starts drooling down my mouth. No one can see it, but they can hear it because it's dark inside, right? And I full body this bear that talks to the chief in Lakota, and I don't know Lakota. And it talks to him in the Lakota language of tells him whatever it is that he needs. And then I pop back down into my body again and I'm okay, right? And I get out and my kids are so pissed at me, right? And they go, Mom. So the next morning it's camping, we all camp there. And the next morning I get up to go find coffee and all these kids come up to me and they start growling. and laughing. And my kids were just, they go, we're out of here. Here, you know. And now they're all adults and we laugh about that, but they were just absolutely mortified. But it's where it came through for me to be the conduit to help the chief at that time, you know.
And so was the chief like, okay, tell me more. Okay, great, good. Like he was communicating back with the bear.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I ended up working with him for about 8 years.
Oh, well, there you go. So
Yeah.
that was another rite of initiation.
Yeah.
So do you know what the bear was saying? Did the Lakota chief tell you what the bear was saying, what the conversation was about?
He needed to change his ways. They were kind of telling, Mama Bear was telling him to get in line.
Oh.
To change some things in his life.
Wow.
And no one could tell him that, but a Mama Bear from, you know, the stars to tell him that, hey,
wow.
you're here for a reason. You have a destiny and you're messing up. So get on with it.
So do you feel, so this bear that you channeled was still a star being?
Mm-hmm.
Which I just want to integrate that for a minute, because we think, okay, a bear, that would be a spirit. It's a spirit animal. It's a part of your psyche, but you're not saying it's a part of his psyche. You're saying it's a specific entity that is a bear and a star being at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. It came in with a specific message for him. It wasn't really for the whole group there, although it ended up, however, it affected everyone there.
Sure.
But it was significant for him. So,
wow.
and that's me just trying to behave and blend. Well, at that time, I didn't want any of that. I was like my kids, you know, I just wanted to just blend and just, you know, be cool. But that wasn't my destiny, I don't think.
Your gift, that's not your gift. Your gift isn't to blend and be cool. Have you had any other spontaneous channeling experiences? That's another psychic fumbling thing where you're like, I did not expect to be channeling right now. Like Lynda did with Sekhmet. That was completely unexpected.
I went to when a healer needs a healing, a friend gave me a healing as a gift with a Brazilian priestess. And I went to her home and I didn't know that you took a liquid, okay? I'm sure it was peyote, but a liquid. I didn't know it at the time though, right? So I go to her and she says, no, it's time. And she did all this prayer work. And then she said, it's time to take the medicine. She goes, how sensitive are you? And I go, oh, I'm like really sensitive. So she pours a little bit more and she goes, how sensitive are you? And I go, oh, I'm like super, super sensitive. You know, I just little bits good. She pours in a little more. She asked me again, how sensitive are you? And I go, I have mercy. I am like really, pours it to the top. And so I drink it and then she pours hers to the top and more. She drinks more than me. And we sit there and I go on the trip. And what I do is I become a Black Panther. And I'm running through the jungles and I can feel it. I can feel the fur. I can feel her teeth. I can feel her run. And it's just so beautiful. And I'm just got all this power and strength and this focus. And then I come to a pond and I look down and I see myself in the pond and I'm going, oh, you're so beautiful, like that, you know, and just taking a moment to reflect on it. And then I came back and then out of the body and then back into this body at the time. And for me, it was a very profound healing for me, where I had been in a relationship for 13 years. And who was I without that relationship? And so that's what it helped me with is, do I exist? How do I exist without, you know, my partner? How do I work? It was really, really helpful. And so sometimes when I'm tired or need some strength or something, I'll call in on that Black Panther to help me.
So now, do you feel like you went into the body of a physical Black Panther in the physical world?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. And do you feel like the message was I mean, the message that I would take from that is, oh, you're a powerful medicine woman. You can be anyone you want to be. Look at who you are. No one else defines you. That's how I would read that. How did you read it?
Exactly. Well, that I exist in so many different aspects
Yes.
of myself. I'm a multidimensional being, and I can choose from all these different modalities to help me be in this world, to walk in this world, right? And to manifest and to create and to help some change and whatever I want to do. It's there. It's open for me if I can just let go and have it.
That is fantastic. And so were you sick after the peyote or did you feel okay?
I wasn't sick at all, but it took me about 3 days to come down.
I imagine.
My son, he came early. He had dropped me off and he came early to get me. And I don't do drugs at all. I don't, and neither does he. And so he picked me up because I had a feeling I should pick you up early, Mom. So they just kind of poured me into a living room and gave lots of water and food and stuff, and I was fine from it, but it took me a while. And again, I just thought about this. That's another cat.
Mm.
Isn't that wild? I think that's kind of wild. And to have the thing with Sekhmet later too. So, and I'm allergic to cats.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's kind of a cosmic joke, right?
Right. Right. You can't be allergic to yourself, silly.
I experience them somehow because they're such amazing beings.
Say that again?
You have to experience them somehow because they're such amazing beings.
Nice. Yeah, and you got to experience them on a really deep, visceral level. I want to flip into telepathy and see if anyone has telepathy stories to share. I'll kind of kick it off. So this was back in my 20s, and again, like I'm going through these spiritual awakenings on multiple levels. And cannabis, I have to say, like hats on. I say hats on instead of hats off because I always wear hats. The hats on to cannabis in terms of the gifts that she's given me. And for me, it's like any relationship, you can abuse it or you can be respectful, you can be codependent, or you can have a mutual like understanding of what that is for you in your life. So this was a time when like cannabis was new to me, and it was like really turning me on to my psychic gifts because I'm very mental and I have a lot of strong mental capacity, and like cannabis helps me go boop. Okay, that's no longer a barrier. You're connected now. So, but I had this new friend who he was a witch, like he practiced, Wicca, and he had his own stuff going on for sure. And we had an experience where, oh gosh, it was just cannabis, but we went really deep. And I just remember like he was coming from a wounded place and I was trying to help him, but like he was expressing his pain through his eyes to me and I was feeling it. And then I would express back through my eyes the sense of like, you're okay, you're loved. But it was like this thing, it was like this whole communication. And that just reminds me of like what Sue has said, like telepathy is not just mental words, it's emotional. And so this was like this wave of his pain coming to me and me like waving back the support I could offer. And it was just, I had never experienced it before. And it just happened naturally. And I'm wondering if anybody else has experiences, what your experiences are with telepathy. Anyone can hop in.
Mine was totally by accident. Again, it's one of those things. It's like that I, working in corporate America, working in cubicles back to back with 3 other people. And I had somebody literally at the corner opposite me, back to back, that was just a jerk. I'm just going to be honest. He was an a-hole. And I did not like him. I didn't want to support him in any way. And he kept asking the same damn question over and over again. And he was just like, I'm not answering him. I am not answering him. I'm going to keep working. Would somebody please answer him? I hate hearing his voice. He couldn't breathe quiet enough around me at that point because he was just a jerk. And finally I swung around and told him the answer. It's like, geez, here, here's the answer. And I looked at everybody like, couldn't you have answered it? And I turn back around and everybody stops and they look at me. And, they've got this really puzzled look on their face. And I'm, what? I tend to be a little short at those joints. What? And like, he didn't say anything. And I was like, of course he did. He's been talking about it for like 10 minutes. Aren't you guys deaf or what? And he just turned white as a ghost. And he's like, I didn't say anything, but I've been working on that for like 10 minutes. And so like from that point on, I was ostracized. Like nobody wanted to be around me.
Oh,
It was like, she's a scary person.
she's a witch.
She's a witch. She can read your mind, and after a while, I just got to having fun with him because, he was such a jerk. And it was like, I know what you did yesterday. I had no idea, but it kept him on his toes a lot. It's like, does your wife know what you did? That was what really got me. Does your wife know what you did?
That's so devious.
I have my moments.
Well, we're younger. We tend to not always know how to wield our power with the most grace. That's for sure.
No, but yeah, I mean, that was that. And my husband would always say, there you go, being psychotic again. When I would answer something to him, instead of psychic, it's like, there you go, being psychotic again. Because I would hear him ask something and I'd answer it. And he's like, I didn't say anything. I was thinking it, but I didn't say anything. There you go, being psychotic again. So yeah, it happens, but usually when I'm just really distracted, doing something else, not when I'm trying, that's when it usually will pick up.
Yeah, like we're not in our way. It just happens spontaneously. Yeah, you're really strong with that. The force is strong with this one. I will say that about you, Lynda Colter-Bergh. Does that spark anything for you, Miss Barbara Jean, in terms of accidental telepathy?
Oh God. I just, I was invited. I moved to this new place in Palm Springs, and there was a country club, and a lady invited me to meet all the women, right? And I shouldn't have said where it was. So, but anyway, never mind. But I'm meeting them for the first time, and I can read their minds. I know what they're thinking, but what they're saying is totally different, right? And they found out that I was psychic. That's what I did. And so when they would shake my hand or they'd say hello to me, you just can read them. You know exactly what they're saying. So a couple times they go, oh, did you read my mind? I said, yeah, but it didn't take very long, or I'll make fun of it, a little bit of fun with it too, And I said, well, I usually don't without your permission, but hey, you invited me to this party. So, and I didn't want it to turn into entertainment for everyone too, which easily can. But yeah, I could read all of, when they, especially if you shake their hand, you get to read everything. And I don't have a way to channel exactly in segments of that. I just get what spirit wants me to get. Either I say something or I don't. When it first turned on in 1989, I had no control over it. I had to tell the person everything that I was saying, and so it took me a number of years. Now I can just turn it on or off. But yeah, it's it makes you a terrible joke teller. It's what I found, that it's just I'm really bad at it, because you already know what they're going to say before they say it. So it's almost like words are too slow, too primitive. I know that too. I know all psychics feel that way, right? That
yeah, it's just frustrating for other people. I know it's frustrating for me, but it can be frustrating for others because it's like you want to just like get to the point. I already know what you're going to say. Just say it.
Right. So we could get on with this. And the same with movies. When I first met my first husband before we got married, he would say, what's going to happen? And I go, are you sure? And I would just tell him exactly what's going to happen in the movie. And every single time I would, every once in a while I would miss something, but I would just tell him. So he got used to that. So then he just said, don't tell me anymore. I want to experience it. So, we just do that. So it becomes a part of your life. It's just how you are. For me, you can take the psychic hat off for sure. I'm much better at it than I used to be. But for a long time, I was a walking out of control healer, I would.
Well, I think, Barbara, you bring up something really important that I have this conversation with someone I know that is always wanting me to give them the answers. And it's like, no, I don't do windows, and I don't do, fortune telling.
Right.
It's like part of this experience is you learning and you making choices. If I tell you everything, it's, I'll tell you, we can talk about questions, we can talk about alternatives, we can talk about the things you should be thinking about in making these decisions, but I'm not going to tell you what to do, and I'm not going to tell you what can happen, because you could make a different choice and that's a different future.
Yeah.
But I think it's our need for security and control in our lives that we want to do that.
Yeah.
We want to have
a good psychic exactly doesn't tell you what to do. A good psychic shows you all the doors. This is seeing, and this is what you could, these are the potentials. So you respond to them, but not for them, right?
Right. And I think that's, I see people, one of my concerns is when I see someone who just lives their life by what the tarot tells them, and it's like, sorry, that's another person looking at the elephant. That's another being looking at an elephant. That's another, and we are in our own way. So we interpret things the way we want, especially if we try to do it for ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't work. Doesn't work that well. Yeah. And it's that need for control.
Well, and it's interesting because there are those psychics who will be like, well, this is going to happen for you, that's going to happen for you, this is going to happen for you, and they will spill it out, and they'll spill it out, they'll spell it out, and that person's like, and that's exactly, those are the things that happened. And then there are the other psychics who are like, no, I'm not here to tell you, what your road is. I'm here to empower you to walk your road, and it's a different take on it. And yeah, I know that I certainly get that place where I'm like, just tell me what's going to go on. And my guides, and Lynda's been one of those people too, where I've like, she'll give me a reading and she'll be like, that's not what this is about. And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. It's about empowerment. And my guides will do that too, where they're like, yeah, you need to have the experience. Like, you're trying to control the experience, and that is not an experience, that's control.
Yeah. I get a lot, not the right question.
Right.
When someone's wanting, it's like not the right question. It's like, okay, you've got to ask it in a different way. This is not the right question to be asking at this time. And then Kat knows when I use the pendulum, it's like a conversation that we have going on. And it's more like, are you on track with your thinking? Are you in right mind thinking or not? And that's more what I get when I use that, because I just let it go while you talk.
Yeah.
I've done that with a lot of people.
And it's great because then you start, all of a sudden, for me at least, I can't speak for Lynda's other clients, but for me, I will start to tune in and be like, oh, this is the vibe I need to get into. And it's the fact that I start getting into alignment, like that's the healing that comes out of the work, as opposed to the answers. It's like the alignment is the answer. The answers come from being in alignment.
Yeah. And it'll be a lot of, well, you're close, you need to dig. This is definitely dig into this more. You're hitting it, dig into this more. Let's figure this out.
100. Jillian, do you have any telepathic experiences where you're like, oh my God, that was telepathy, eh?
I don't know.
That's Mike, give me a hard time.
I can't think of anything full on telepathy, but the first time I had a clairaudient experience where I realized it was actually something. There was one point when I first started getting into Dolores Cannon's work. I had at one point been thinking about taking her course, her QHHT course, and I was pretty adamant that I was going to take it. So I was telling some of my friends about it, and I was, telling them about the course and about Dolores, and I kept saying that she was from South Carolina, because that's where I thought she was from. Anyways, I would say a week after I started talking about this, I again was doing a meditation, and I'm just in my zone. I'm not seeing anything. And all of a sudden, outside of my ear, right into my ear, I hear Missouri. And I sat up, and that's where my claircognizance kicked in, because I just knew to pick up the phone and look her up. Like, I had no reason, you know, it didn't sound like a female. I don't know really exactly what it sounded like, but the word came from outside of my ear. So I looked up Dolores Cannon just because I had that knowing somehow. And I remember as I'm Googling her, I'm like, so if this says Missouri, I'm going to die. Like, I am going to die. So I look at her bio and she's from Missouri. And it was the craziest. Like, it's the first time I really had a word spoken outside of my ear. Like, sometimes I'll get like a word drop in my head or a phrase drop in my head, or it's usually something in my head, but for it to come outside of my ear, that was crazy. And I was in a state of shock. I was so shocked.
Wow. That that triggers a memory for me of being a little kid. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I kind of have to, again, even as a little kid, I was exploring psychic stuff. Like, as a little kid, I was always into UFOs, Bigfoot, anything otherworldly. That was just always part of my fascination. And I was reading this book called Psychic Energy. I think that was just literally the name was Psychic Energy. And I was starting to do the exercises from it as like a 12-year-old, right? And my clairaudience, that's actually where my clairaudience started to kick in. And I did turn it off later on because I was told it was of the devil. So I turned it off. But I have the power to turn it back on. But anyway, like I remember there were like 3 little incidents that had happened. One of them was I was at our grocery store. I lived in a small town. I grew up in a small town in Iowa. So there was like a grocery store. And I'm standing outside of the grocery store, and I'm just a little bit near the soda machine that's in front of the grocery store. And I hear like this weird little like gremlin laugh. And I turn around and I'm like there's nobody there and nobody else heard it. And I'm like, okay. And then I was oh my God, this had to been 4th grade. Because I'm remembering I was in the school cafeteria. I'm sitting there having lunch and with kids, eating some like god awful peanut butter and jelly sandwich, whatever they had that day. And I hear on the side of me, "What are you doing?" And again, I look and there's nobody there. Nobody else hears it. And it was years later that I'm like, that little voice like that was the little cat beings that had later bit my feet. I'm like, it's the same voice. It is the same voice where like they were just kind of popping up in my field on the astral level, I guess. But anyway, it makes we have these conversations. This is why I love these conversations, because you start to remember like all the things that you did experience but took for granted that were part of your childhood, and you just kind of tucked away somewhere.
Yeah. Do you think they're your guides? Like you were saying, well, you're connected with the cats. Like, do you think they're your cosmic guides?
I think they're part of my cat family is the best way I can say. I have a lot of dreams also where I will where someone will turn into a cat, or cats will turn into somebody, or there's a baby that turns into a cat, or a cat that turns into a baby. So like, cats are kind of this reoccurring theme. And I had somebody who drew a soul picture of me, and they drew my guides. They drew like a Native American guide that was there. They drew like a great grandmother that was there. And then she drew like 3 cats. And she was like, "You've just got a lot of cats around you, a lot of cats with you." And I was like, yeah, like, it's just, yeah, they haven't existed. Okay. I'll give the mic over to somebody else in a minute, but that sparks another memory of like being a kid, being outside, and there's a wasp that's starting to zero in on me. And like what you don't want to do is like wave at a wasp. You don't like wave around because they're like, "Oh, now I'm really gonna get you." And so like I'm off the porch, the wasp is coming at me, And I'm just like in fear because I don't want to get stung or whatever. And I'm like, and I turn around and I hiss and I bat the wasp out of the sky or out of, the space in front of me. And I was like, okay. I was like, I did that. Okay. But like, that was my reaction, was to hiss and bat, and it knocked the wasp out of my, so again, that's some kind of like a memory thing of like, I didn't, find something to swat at it. I didn't, like I acted like a cat. Anyway.
I wonder if my daughter's connected with the cats too, because every morning she wakes up, she's like, today I'm this cat and my name is, and then the next morning, today I'm this cat, my name is, and she's gotten into the hissing too. Like it seems to be like something I'll make her mad. I'll peeve her off somehow, and instead of saying something to me, she'll just
That is so funny. I don't know if that, because people are like, they'll associate that and say, oh, well, that's because you have Lyran this, or like they'll want to associate it to something. But I think there's several cat tribes. I think there's cat tribes from the Sirius star system. I don't think it's like a one size fits all. What do you know about the cat people, Barbara Jean? You're a cosmic mama.
Cosmic mama. It tells me of a story though. I was at a funeral. Okay. It was actually my dad's funeral. And in the funeral, my family are very Baptist. They're all Baptist, right? And so I actually I was waiting, and I could feel my uncle, one of my uncles, I won't say which one it was, start to come up to me. And I could feel him as he's walking towards me, and he has a Bible in his hand. And he's going to tell me, because I was the officiant of my father's funeral, and he was going to tell me that I had no right to do that. And I could feel him gonna come tell me, just, tell me all this stuff. I wasn't in the mood for it. I didn't want to do it. I had a long day, and I just couldn't deal with him and his stuff right then. So as he starts to come close to me, he comes pretty close, like 3 feet away from me. I turn around, I go, and no one else sees it but him. And his eyes got like really big, and he just turned around, and he was gone, just gone. And I had forgotten to, right when you're talking about that, there is that cat part of us, if you need it, man, you can bring it in, and I did. I just, just scared the crap out of him though. Yeah, and I do think there definitely is, with Sekhmet, she comes from off planet, and so she's an amazing being, and she has the female body and this beautiful feline face, and she just helps you come into your power and your strength, and if you need her, you can call on her. And I really work with her a lot.
Where do you think she comes from? Where did she tell you what the world, dimension, planet? Does she say where she's from?
No, she doesn't. Now a lot of people like you said she's Lyran, that you come from Lyran, you're Lyran, or you're Sirius, or you're this or you're that, but I've never had her tell me. I believe she's like us. When people ask me what planet do you come from, I don't have a planet that I come from.
A single one.
I'm a Heinz 57, like I am here. I'm Scottish, Irish, Indian, English, mostly English. And so that's the same, where we want to put it in a particular category so that we can feel good about it. And again, Lynda said it so we can have power and control over it. When maybe we're not supposed to know, and we just deal with that. Isn't that wonderful to have that mystery of that?
Right. We do have a question, and I know we're coming to the.
Yeah,
we're getting. I want to make sure we get this. The Albert's asking a series of really insightful questions, so maybe also look at it and pop in off onto the chat later and give some of your feedback. But he's talking about having out-of-body experiences, having terrestrial experiences. And it's difficult to parse the insight from it because it's so subjective. And how do you get that clarity? How do you know that what you're seeing, what the messages are? How do you maintain that? For me, it's what I'm really getting is how can you, there's no normal relevance that you can base it on. It's so different for him. So wanting to know that. Paradigm difference is that the normal rules of reality and physics don't apply. So how do you know? How do you maintain that? How do you understand it?
Is he saying how do you decipher the meaning of something
I think
when
so.
it's so subjective?
Yeah, I think so, Albert. If that's not right, then
Then you can
maybe
pop in
you
and
can
correct
clarify
us.
more. It says with clarity, I mean actual focus and clarity during this state. Maintaining it during the state, Albert? I think that's a good question. Yeah.
How do you maintain that altered state and not get lost in it or lose your lucidity? Is that kind of what we're saying?
I think so. There's a bit
Okay.
of a delay, so I think that's it.
Okay. How would you say, Barbara Jean?
I would say you can trust it. You're going to learn how to trust it. You don't have to control it. That if you can just relax and let go, again, it's where the body needs to relax and let go because you're expanded consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. And we really exist without a body, so we can go anywhere and be anything in all different places. So it's learning how to work with that amazing being that you are with all your capacities and expand that consciousness. Sometimes the body has to catch up with that and feel it as well. So I would say if you're working in those areas, make sure that you really take good care of your body and that you're not alone, and reach out to like Third Eye Salon and like you're doing today, and we'll do our best to give you what our experiences have been. That way we can all go together where we're going.
Amen. And I think you have to be able to believe it. Like one of the first things is being able to believe it. Because if you don't believe something, then you're blocking it. Like if you don't believe it's possible, then you've created a block. And then not giving up, like practicing it. And I'm like, I can say this, but I'm the worst at it in terms of like, because I'm so impatient, and it's like, well, but again, riding a bike, if you're going to like get it down, you're going to have to be willing to keep showing up to the bike and letting yourself fall over or, wipe out or whatever you do. But it's a skill like anything else. Your psychic abilities, when we're not allowed to experience and embrace them as a child and hone them as a child, we have to relearn them. And that is a process that you just have to honor, and you have to be patient with it.
Well, I think it brings up a good point of difficult to let go of control when I try to focus and pray to stay safe and free from dark energies that I fear.
Ooh. So speak to that, Barbara Jean, in terms of that, because it's like, that's been one of my things with astral projecting, is that it's like, there are people who have amazing astral projection or astral, not projection, but astral travel, where they have amazing astral travel. They've gone to the sun, they've gone to Jupiter, blah, blah, blah. And other people are like, yeah, I left my body and then I was attacked astrally. And so it's like, you hear like these different stories. How would you coach somebody through their fear? Great, Lynda, thank you.
I think it's really important if you're going to do this kind of work that you set sacred space. You set your body space, you set your mind space, and you set your environment space. It's really important to set that space and be mindful of your thoughts while you're there as well. And there's all sorts of things that you can do to set your space, to set sacred space for yourself. And again, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and it just becomes normal. Like today before this show, I set my space, I grounded myself, I checked my auric field, I aligned my chakras, I went and did some beautiful sage, I lit a candle, I opened up my windows and doors, I sang around, I danced around, and then I got ready, I got prepared for holding this sacred space. So if you can set that space and do your work that way, it allows you to have more out breaths. Because if you're the whole time, it's not going to serve. But if you can just let go, then and have it set. So it's controlled by setting a space, but then it's a trust and let go of, and that something bigger than you can actually help and aid you as well. If there's something that you're afraid that the darkness is going to come, then don't do the meditation that day. Respect what you see. If you see something dark, then change it. If you have the ability to see it, you have the ability to change it. Okay. And you have a body that gives you power over the entities that don't have a body naturally. It's a law.
Ooh.
Right. Yeah. I think too, for me, going on that is that I do set the intent, and for me, it's within your belief system. So I say, that everything that happens within this is through Christ consciousness, that it is only for the person's highest good, that I remove myself and they remove their intentions from this to allow the most clear information to come through. And then I always have this like secret code that I have, because there's one, like I have had the same, when I use my pendulum, the same feeling, the same personality literally that comes through. And it's like, I remember asking, who are you? And I went through the whole list of, because I was worried that, I don't know who I'm working with, right? So I want a name, I want to label it. And so I was going through, are you this? Are you that? Are you these? And I kept getting no, 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 no. And I'm very auditory. So finally I just got, I am that without name. And it was like, whoa, okay. Like, that's all you need to know, right? Like, this is source. That is, when I asked, it's like, oh, okay, is this my conception of what source? Am I tapping into something that there is no name for, that it's beyond our words, is basically what I was getting.
And it was your due diligence. Like, you were very, very clear about being a clean, clear channel and only the highest good.
Yeah.
And again, you're like grounding your intention. And I think that we have to be like what Barbara Jean was saying, like, if there's fear that shows up, what I know about the astral world is that if you bring fear with you, then that fear starts to manifest in a form right in front of you, because we do that in our daily life. If I'm obsessing about something, I'm afraid of something, I draw it into my experience. On the astral field, where there's no body, like, boop, like it just shows up, the mirror is right there. So that's part of you owning your power and saying, oh, I have to master my fears, because if I don't, they'll manifest, and then I'm literally chasing myself and running from myself.
Right. And like, I guess for me, like, I'm such a control freak that I can't do drugs, because I'm like, too much of a control freak. But I've talked to a lot of people who have it, like, oh yeah, if you go on a bad trip, if you're thinking about that, you're going on a bad trip.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it is a lot about taking that fear with you versus not, but also like having dual respect for what's going on, and demanding that same respect for yourself, that boundary. I have a friend of mine who, I love her dearly. She would say, my space, your space, my space, your space. And when I get to that point where it's like, I keep that in mind, my space, your space, this is not allowed, not allowed.
Yeah. That's powerful. That's something I've remembered as well, in terms of that boundary thing. Just declaring that is a strong thing to do. Well, we have been going for almost 2 hours. I kind of wanted to do any last shares so we can let all of our lovely people here today do what they need to do with the rest of their day. Miss Jillian, do you have any last thoughts or shares or stories that you want to pop in with?
No more stories right now. It's just, I agree with what they have been saying about boundaries when doing this kind of stuff. Like, when I go into a meditation, or even if I'm intending to connect with spirit or from the other side, I set boundaries before. So I talk to my team, I call in certain beings to clear my energy, clear my home, clear my space.
Mm-hmm.
You can do smudging. Personally, I like the bell. I take the bell and I go around and I break up the energy of the room, and then I'll do a smudging. But it's just, at one point when I started all of this, I wasn't setting up the boundaries. And I was coming into contact with creepy things and this and that. But I've since learned, if you do come into that situation where you are experiencing something negative, all you have to do is tell them to leave. And you can call in your guides, and you can call in whoever you need to call in to get rid of them. There's also sayings you can do. I have some written down in one of my journals that I can post on the Facebook group if you want.
Yeah.
And
I
I
think that
did
would
it
be-
personally. I had a really bad experience, and I did this prayer pretty much. I mean, just talking to specific beings and clearing out. And once I did that, I had nothing.
Hi, Max.
After I did that, I had never had that experience again, and it still, yeah, still holds true. But I've had a blast doing this. It's about time that he gets to bed.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Mama Jillian. We appreciate you so much. You're just an angel.
Thank
And
you.
we'll keep checking the questions because I know Albert has some more and is not on Facebook. So we'll check the questions on
Well-
YouTube as well later and pipe in. So if other people are watching this later on and you've got questions, definitely ask and we'll all take a look at it and try and answer the best we can.
Beautiful. Thank you, Miss Lynda. And Miss Barbara Jean, Barbara Jean, do you have any other final thoughts, wishes, stories?
Thanks for having me. And I'm just seeing with this gentleman who asked that question, that maybe for him, it might be a suggestion to have a group where he works first. And so he builds his confidence. If he can go to a temple or a place where he can work with a group, it's always a beautiful thing to work with a group.
Yeah. And he asked some additional questions. So definitely let's go back on, see what we can do on there to help answer.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And we, Barbara Jean just popped out. Something must have happened on her tech side, or her spirit just grabbed her.
Sounds good.
But thank you, Miss Lynda, again, for just being who you are, being the gift that you are, and for showing up, sharing your wisdom, sharing your heart, and helping us with our chat today. And so I want to remind everybody that we do have all of our links below. You have Barbara Jean's links below. We have Barbara Jean's links below. I like to jam my words together occasionally. Again, like, share, hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell so that you don't miss any of the messages or meetings or stories or shares that we do here. And yeah, just be good to yourself in the meantime, and be loving to yourself, be the love you want to see in the world, and let that shine and radiate throughout your day and your life and who you are. So we love you. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.